Just as you came in, I asked all of you to write down the number one cause of stress in your life, and I collected all of those, and I had a chance to look at them. And some of you aren't well. I don't know how else to say that. Some of you are just not well. Different people wrote down different things that drive them crazy. One lady wrote down, my husband, he just drives me nuts. He's very suspicious. He nags me all the time. He keeps asking me, was there another man? Well, I don't know who wrote that, but man, here's what you should say. Just say, the next time he asks you that, just say, there's just got to be. All right. Somebody else wrote down money. So if you have too much money, I've got an easy solution for you. Just write a check to everybody else in the crowd with the extra money that you have, and probably the person that wrote money said they didn't have enough. So yeah, money's a big thing. I can understand how that would cause you some stress, but it's not the number one cause of stress. Another person wrote down, or a couple of people wrote down, time, that they don't have enough time. So I've got a suggestion for you folks. On any given day, fly to New York, then you have 24 hours, 3-hour time change. You get 27 hours. Unfortunately, you got to give it back when you get back. You know what? There isn't enough time to do all the things that you try to do. Most of us are overcommitted, and we promise to do too many things. So time's a pressure, but it's not the number one cause of stress. And what one person said, I don't know, this is the most unusual one, they said, well, traffic drives me crazy, and particularly when people cut me off on the road. That really drives me crazy. So I've got a solution for that. I want you to get yourself one of these, and if somebody cuts you off on the road, I want you to catch them. I don't care if you have to drive 200 or 300 miles out of your way. I don't care if you have to drive 90 miles, it doesn't matter. I want you to pull up on the right of them. I want you to take this out, and when they look at you to see what's going on, I want you to start screaming, pull over, pull over, pull over. And when they pull into the center of the road, you keep going. Let them figure it out. I hope you figured out what I'm trying to get you to do here. The reality is that the number one cause of stress, people guess all kinds of different things, but the number one cause of stress is you and what you do and the way you think about things. Most of us really are pretty goofy about all this. We do the same things over and over again, and we keep expecting a different kind of result. Stress comes from the way in which you see the world. Look, it would be nice if I could change your husband, if I could give you more money, if I could give you more time, and if we had normal people driving on the road. That would be nice. But I don't know how to do that. All I know how to help you do is to change yourself. See, most stress reduction programs have the quick fix. And they talk about one of three things. Eat differently, if you eat this or eat that. Other programs talk about exercise. Some of them talk about meditation. I'm going home. Or relaxation of some type. See, I don't think any of it. You know what that stuff is designed to do? That stuff is designed to reduce your stress after you have it. This program's a little different because I want to prevent you from getting stressed. I want you to be able to come to work and enjoy what you're doing no matter what kind of lunatics you work around. I'll give you an example. Some of you work for bosses that are clinically insane. I don't know how else to say that. They use some interesting management strategies. One of them is called MBD. Have you ever heard of that? Management by dreaming. That means he has a dream of some kind. He expects you to do something, and then he expects you to figure out a way to get it done. Another one, perhaps a little more ruthless, MBR, management by Rambo. Got a problem? And he tosses a grenade in there on you. So as far as I'm concerned, if you've got a boss like that, you need the magic wand. When they want you to do impossible things, just wave it over the work, because that's about all you can do. Now, making a very serious point in a very funny way, or hopefully in a funny way. Well, you don't think it's funny, but most of the people think it's funny, in a funny way. And here's the sad part of it. 98% of the people that come to stress reduction programs don't do a damn thing about their level of stress. And I've always wondered about it because I've been doing these programs for about 30 years. Why don't they do anything? And then I had a realization about 15 years ago, and that realization is that most of you are addicted to your stress. You like that stress. You love it. And it does certain things for you. And most of us are not really in touch with what it does for us. So we're addicted to stress in two ways. The first way is pretty simple to explain. Chemically, we love that adrenaline rush. You want to take a perfectly boring piece of work and make it exciting? Leave it for the last 5 minutes. When you're under stress, it's the equivalent of driving your car by smashing that gas pedal to the floor and jump-starting whatever you have going on. If I could give you a hypodermic needle filled with all the chemicals that you pump through your body when you're under stress, and I mainlined it for you, your reaction would be, yeah, I'm feeling good. And some of us, in addition to the chemicals that we pump, we drink coffee, we have sugar. So think about your first cup of coffee of the day. 20 minutes after that cup of coffee, you're going, yeah, I feel good. 30 minutes after that cup of coffee, 35 minutes afterwards, you're starting to go, uh-oh, uh-oh. And you know, if you don't have another cup of coffee or a donut or some other sugar, that by the end of the day, you've caffeine, sugared through the day, you've done whatever, and Jeopardy's going to come on, and Alec's going to be asking you a question, and you're going to be there, flies going to be landing on your tongue, because we've sugared ourselves through the day. So for most of us, that stress is a way of chemically amping certain things. Let me say it another way. We're my list makers out there, the people that love to make lists, okay? Pardon my way of saying it, folks, but for you, the orgasm is no longer in the bedroom. It is now scratching things off your list. The single most exciting part of your life is scratching something off your list. Here's how you know you have it bad. If you did something that was not on your list, you first had to write it on the list just so you could scratch that puppy off the list. And here it gets worse, because you have a 10-item list. You do 9 items on the list. Before you can finish number 10, you make a new list. It has 12 items on it. You're further behind than you were before. So for most of us, we play a game with this stress. And the game gets even a little different than that. For most of us that have stress, it's a good excuse not to do certain other things. Not to do certain things that maybe we say we'd like to do or other people think we should do. So here's a simple way of looking at it. A clean garage is the sign of a sick mind. If you have the time and willingness to clean your garage, there must be something else so horrible out there that you're trying to avoid that you're even willing to clean the garage. Let me say it in ways that all of you can understand it. One thing that some people do when they're under stress is pick their nails or their cuticles. So where are my cuticle pickers out there? See, I used to be one. The reason I know these things is that I did all these things. And I would pick my cuticles when I was late. And I didn't like being late, but I was younger at that time. So here's this deal. Think about this. I'm driving down the road 6,000 miles an hour. I am now going sideways down the road. And the next thing I do is I look at my hand and I go, ooh, there's one little piece of skin that's out of place. Why, I think I'll take that skin and rip it right off my body. Well, what happens? You know what happens when you do that. It bleeds. By the way, that's subtly exactly what we want to happen, because what's the next thing we're doing? We're doing something to try to stop the bleeding. Well, what's the game we're playing there? Well, we didn't want to think about being late, and there wasn't much we could do about it because we're already driving 6,000 miles an hour. Now we've distracted ourselves with another little behavior, and that's a way that we deal with our stress rather than deal with the real issue, which is, how come I'm late all the time? Let me give it to you another funny way, dieting. You know, some of us eat too much when we're under stress, right? Who's been on a diet recently? Let me tell you something. The only good reason to go on a diet when you're in extreme need of gaining weight, because I don't care what diet you're on. You could be on the frog and peach diet. You could be on the peach and frog diet. You could eat your McFood and McVomit after you McEat. It doesn't matter, and I'm going to tell you McWhy. I want you to think about this. When you eat too much, are you eating just the foods that you like? See, I mean, they're going to float you over the Macy's parade with 6 people holding string there on you. Maybe you've at least gotten there by eating the foods you like. No, not really. Sometimes at night, think about it. Think about the last bag of Doritos you ate. You had taste sensation of 2 Doritos. The first Dorito which you ate at the beginning of the bag, which tasted real good, and the last microscopic Dorito crumb, which you're licking off your fingers, and you're going, how the heck did I eat this whole bag? Well, let's be honest about it. When do we eat too much? Most of us eat too much at night when we're not feeling terrific about ourselves. We're not feeling good about who we are or what's going on. So here's the choice. It comes down to something very basic. Okay, I can face the fact that I'm a worthless slug of a human. No. I can face the fact that I'm not happy, or I can inhale this German Black Forest chocolate cake. Whap! How'd that happen? Most of us are legitimately surprised that we ate the entire cake. We shouldn't be surprised by that, because we've just substituted for that stress. We don't want to deal with the issue of really what's going on with me, how I feel about myself. It's much easier to deal with that replacement activity. So whether you smoke too much, drink too much, eat too much, shop too much, work out too much, it doesn't matter. Most of those, I'm going to call them addictive behaviors, stress-related behaviors, are there because we don't want to look inside. You want the bottom line? You know why 98% of the people don't do anything about their stress? Because they're afraid to look inside. They're afraid to look at how they're really feeling inside, because stress is very much an emotional issue, not a logic issue. And some of us don't want to look inside because we're afraid of what we're going to see. You want to deal with your stress, you got to get inside there, find out what's going on, and then be willing to see the world differently. I started doing stress reduction a long time ago, and I realized that you can learn a lot about yourself or about anybody that's under stress by asking one simple question. So I'd like you to write down the following phrase. If I only had less stress, I would. Or for some of you, you could write down, if I only had more time, I would. And I want you to fill in the rest of that sentence. Be honest with yourself, because I'm not going to ask you to identify it in public here. So if you had less stress, what would you spend your time doing? And I'm going to tell you a little bit about what I did when I first answered that, to give you an idea of what you might find if you're really willing to do that exercise. See, back in 1980, I was a university prof, and I taught 30 classes in 1 year, which is the equivalent of a triple full load. It's the equivalent of what 3 full-time professors would do. I was an adjunct, one of these gypsy professors that went from college to college. I was teaching at 7 different places, and I taught 30 classes in 1 year. And I nearly burnt myself out of teaching. It drove me crazy. Not the teaching part so much, but all the other stuff, the paperwork, the grading papers, etc. And when I asked myself that question, if I only had more time, what would I do? I said to myself, I came to a conclusion that I would write. I would sit down at that time with a typewriter. We didn't have computers then. I would sit down at my typewriter and I would write. And I would write things that everybody would want to read, and it would be great. And unlike most people, see, because most of us, here's what we do. When we finish that sentence, we don't really change our lives to be able to do that. We keep that idea as a fantasy. Well, if I only had more time, I'd go by the ocean some more. I'd smell the roses. I'd spend quality time with my kids. You fill in the rest of the sentence. But here's the trick. Most of us don't change our lives enough to ever do that. So what we have with this stress is a real neat fantasy that we never really have to test out in reality to see if we like it. Well, you know what? I was a little different. So within about a year, I cut my teaching load in half. So I was only teaching 15 courses that year, which for me was plenty. And I started to write. And I realized a couple of things. Well, the typewriter didn't laugh. I didn't get any feedback from it. And apparently what I wrote was drivel. Nobody thought it was any good. So here I was thinking, okay, I would just wish I had time to write. I actually gave myself the time to write and found out, you know what? That fantasy wasn't really as good as it could be. So when we start this inquiry about what's causing us stress, we begin to inquire deeply about real basic questions. What are we doing on the planet? What am I really here to do? And what's important to me? Some of us spend so much time taking care of little trivia, taking care of other people, doing all the things that other people want us to do, that we never get in touch with what we really want to do. Ladies out there, you work full-time, you take care of your husband, you take care of a house, you take care of your kids. The only person who gets cheated out there is you. How's that working for you? Not fabulous.